Hello, welcome to the latest in our series of bite-sized videos. I'm Chris.
And I'm Nathan, and today we are looking at the differences between empathy and sympathy. Now, if you imagine that you're in a hole and you fall into this hole and it's dark and it's cold and it's lonely and you're scared and worried, you might be hurt, you might be calling out for help, what would the difference be between those two approaches?
Okay, well, let's look at sympathy first. What does it mean to be sympathetic to somebody in that situation? Now, I would suggest if we're looking at that picture, there's a person in the hole, they're struggling, clearly struggling. If we're sympathetic, not empathic, we're going to be outside of that hole, we're going to be looking at them, and maybe we're going to be offering advice, or maybe we're going to be chucking down a rope to try and help get them out of the situation that they're in. It perhaps feels a little bit like rescuing from a situation, that kind of thing. We're not necessarily at this point looking at emotionally coming alongside a person. We're looking at what it might mean to practically help them. We all know what it's like when someone says, yeah, I know how that feels, I know how you feel. We don't actually necessarily know how they feel. That statement comes from a sympathetic standpoint, not necessarily an empathic standpoint. But Nathan, you're going to talk a little bit about empathy.
Yes, so empathy is it's something we learn. You have to learn empathy, you're not born with it. And so empathy kind of taps into something inside of us. So necessarily an experience or something that we've gone through personally that enables us to tap into what that person's going on. So the person who's in the hole, an empathic response would be to maybe metaphorically get down there with them and go, actually, I do know what that's like because I've been there, because I can really tap into that emotion. And an empathic response may not be, I'm going to get you out of here. It's actually, I understand this. How can we make this better together? What is the strengths of that person they've got, and what can they do to help themselves get out? It's more of a kind of understanding, I get you kind of feeling, and it empowers that person to understand what strengths they've got and help themselves to get out.
Yeah, that's key. And I think this is important actually in the context of counselling sessions, empathy versus sympathy. Now, effective counsellors will be able to offer both at the right and appropriate times within the context of a therapy session. Now, obviously, in the way that Nathan's talking, our empathy can come from the element of learned previous experience that we've had in our lives. Now, as a counsellor, we have to kind of flip that on its head a little bit, because we've not experienced everything that can happen in life. But we have to try and imagine ourselves what it would be like to be in that person's place, to be in their space. So we do that by coming alongside them, by emotionally connecting with them. And actually in the therapy room, Nathan, you'll probably agree with this, that's where the real kind of therapy magic happens, when you can display empathy to your clients and they really get that sense that they're being listened to and understood. The connection's there at that point, and that's when the real sort of meaty therapy progression tends to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And neither are, they're both the kind of things.
Yeah.
Not one's not necessarily better than the other. As with everything we say in therapy, they just are.
Yeah.
But sympathy can lack depth because someone who's sympathetic, thank you very much, would potentially look down in that person in that hole and go, "Ooh, that looks nasty," and then go away. Yeah. And sometimes that's all we can do as human beings, because we can't tap into that empathy and that place because we need to keep ourselves safe, and that's fine. But there's an element of kind of going, oh, that looks really bad. Is there anything I can do to help, rather than walking away is a nicer way to do it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Empathy is about connection. Sympathy is kind of about helping somebody come through at that point. So it's important really to recap that sympathy and empathy both do have a place in a therapy session, but actually real sympathy probably has more of attraction once empathy has been established, rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
You think you establish that empathy first, you've got that connection with your client, and then the progression through the bits about how help can occur, how change can happen from that one situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree that empathy is has to be established in a counselling relationship, definitely.
Yeah.
And sympathy is a useful tool within that framework. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we've said everything.
I think we said everything. So this is one of our bite-sized videos. There are many more on our website and on our YouTube channel. Please do have a look. It's www.cornerstonesw.co.uk. Click on the resources page and there's a plethora of white papers, there's articles and there's podcasts. If you'd like to get in contact to arrange an initial session, then please drop us an email as well, and we look forward to hearing from you.